Direct from Foxborough, Massachusetts, the gem of Norfolk County, and taped at the studios of Foxborough Cable Access. It's Foxborough Central, and here's your host, Bob Hickey.
Welcome to another episode of Foxborough Central. I am Bob Hickey, your host. Thank you for taking a little bit of time sitting on back and watching with me as we interview Dick Haydecker. Dick Haydecker, who is the chairman of the Ad Hoc Town Hall Committee here in Foxborough. And we are here today to talk about some recent developments and some options for our town hall. And brief history short, town hall was built when? 1965. And it has served our community well. Most of the business is conducted on the top floor, which most people consider the first floor, but it's actually the second floor. And the police department for decades was in the bottom level. They moved out to go to the new public safety building, and it has since then been used by a couple departments, planning board most notably. And there have been some issues of late. There have been some maintenance issues, some water issues, some lingering issues of lead dust from a former shooting range that the police department used back in the day. All of which has come to, maybe we'll term it as it's come to a head now. And depending upon when you're watching this, recently our Board of Selectmen voted to agree with a recommendation from the town's municipal building committee to build a new town hall. Am I good so far?
So far.
All right. Every once in a while it pays to buy the Foxborough Reporter and pay attention to what's going on. So, Mr. Haydecker, it's great to see you. I, of course, have known you over the years in my role as selectman, also in just reading your very thoughtful letters in the Foxborough Reporter talking about different aspects of buildings and the way we treat our assets, our infrastructure assets here in town. And you certainly come with a lot of credibility, not only from my personal experience with you, but can you just share a little bit about your history here in town so that we can just set the stage?
Well, very briefly, I've been in town about 50 years. I'm an architect with, again, 50 years of experience in the public sector. I've sat on several boards in town, the school committee. I chaired the building committee over several sessions. And with that, basically, there are other members of our group that should be pointed out. One is an architect. Second one is an engineer. Both of them were to be here today. One is, but is not in the middle of the discussion. The engineer was a former chairman of the building committee as well. We have another former member of the building committee in our group, a contractor, an estimator, a building materials specialist, and what have you. So we do have building committee, building construction experience all through our group, in addition to some general taxpayers that have cited concern.
So the ad hoc committee was developed, correct me if I'm wrong, about 8 months ago in response to ongoing issues and concerns. And I think back at the time there was a thought that money that was quote unquote left over from a school building project was going to be reallocated, utilized. It didn't go far, but I think that was the genesis of the committee, if I go back my Wayback Machine.
Well,
it was only 8 months ago, but still I go back my Wayback Machine.
That was more a possible answer to the issue, that with that $6 million, a great deal of this could be taken care of. I think that was not the initial thrust. The initial thrust was very simple. From an architectural and a construction point of view, you do not get an alteration and addition project and a new project at the same price. There has to be other issues built in that make it the same price. And on that basis, we started digging into the reports to see what the question was. And it became very apparent at the time that there were three basic issues. One was the condition of plant, which we've heard about recently with the kayak episode. Second is the space effectiveness or efficiency, however you want to consider that. And the third is obviously cost. If we get into the depth of this, we could spend several hours on it, and I know you don't have this, so we will be as brief as we can. The condition of plant is probably the biggest part of the architect's report, and it isn't just this architect's report.
So and the architect is?
KBA.
Okay, so that's Castle
Booz Associates.
And they recently gave a report based upon specs that were given to them, presumably from the former town manager and others who had input into what they visualized a new town hall versus a renovated town hall would be. And then the other, and correct me whenever I'm wrong, by the way, and the other piece you referenced was our building commissioner, Bill Cuspera, who is a very good person, both professionally and personally. He had it up to his ears, so much to speak, and he tried to give a little push, what apparently was successful by bringing a kayak as a prop from flooding they had on the first floor during a recent rainstorm. So there we go.
Yeah, all of that is fairly true. The issue is, though, the architect was hired to do a study. There's some question how far the study got or should have gotten, but that's not germane at the moment. But he did get into the building, research it. He talked with all of the departments, put together their requests, and then put together a recommendation on the spaces, which were then apparently approved by Town Hall. Several rooms were deleted to save space and money and what have you. But the biggest thing on the condition of plant, which is the highlight of recent events, is the question that KBA, along with a prior report in '08 by one of the selectmen and the building inspector, and prior work in '05 and '95, '96, pointed out very basically that the only thing wrong with the building is aging and maintenance. Mm-hmm. There's nothing written in there talking about disaster, collapse, failure. The study does reach a point, though, where, as Jack Schleier has said, the other architect on the group, the masonry and the walls are not sufficiently analyzed in terms of today's and tomorrow's problems. And secondarily, it has been pointed out that the report itself talks about it appears. Mm-hmm. It appears, or our summation is based on observation. Testing what wasn't done except for the hazardous waste. And this was a repeat of what the state had already done several years ago when the police brought it up. But the issues are very simple. They talk ADA, seismic, hazardous materials, new roof windows, so on, new toilets, ADA, sprinkler system, new heating, new electrical, new environmentally controlled storage areas. Those 10 items are very simple. They have to be done for either building.
Right.
And they have to be done basically equally. So the question is, at this point, what are the other issues that press this into a plan? There is one point that's expressed other than masonry. I'll get into the masonry in a moment. It talks about the height of the ceiling downstairs. If any of our observers have been to motels recently, they will look up and see these lines on the ceiling with an sort of a rough aggregate finish on it. That's precast concrete. Motels are using them all over the country. It's a very simple operation and standard. You go in, you spray a finish on it, and you're done. The new program is only going to have 2,000 square feet of the 7,000 on the ground floor that even need a ceiling. All the other spaces are storage, mechanical, electrical, and so on, and these do not need ceilings. So what is the big issue of the height? We can design the ductwork and the piping to avoid spaces where this occurs. So as you go through the list, and this list repeats prior studies pretty simply, that it really doesn't matter what they are talking about in terms of condition of plant.
Okay.
The plan, though, breeds a whole different kind of animal that needs to be looked at. KBA says very simply, after all the studies and the work that needs to be done within the existing building and the new building, it turns out the costs are identical. And if you're given a choice at the auto dealer of having a used car or a new car at the same price, what choice are you going to make? If the price is the same, there's other questions. And how is it one can be done for 17,000 feet and the other one needs 21,000 square feet? This 4,000 square foot differential, using a unit price that the architect's estimator gave us, this 4,000 feet is worth $2 million right there. If we can cut 4,000 feet out of the building, we've cut $2 million out of the budget. So it's no longer equal. And just as an observation, as you look at the plan next to you, Bob, the plan is the revised A1 that you can see. The red line is the original A1.
Now, when you say A1, what is exactly A1?
A1 is a revision to Plan A. Plan A was way out here,
Okay.
that you see in the red line. Plan A1 is our redesign of the plan, consolidating space. And when you get into the consolidation of space and look at the ground floor, we can save almost 1,000 square feet in the inspection, health, planning, and Concom by combining them into one area, one half of the building over here, which is what their new building plan shows. Instead, their A plan has it in two separate areas with 700 to 1,000 more square feet. So I can pick up that square footage right away.
Okay.
So as you look at the difference, this is a one floor modification. It's half the square footage of what the original A plan had. Also, it's only single story, so we don't have to build the basement, which is another 2,500 square feet. So the savings in square footage alone, and the fact that this plan in 25 of the 26 program spaces has larger square footage for every space in the building than the new plan, would also make this the most space effective and efficient plan
Okay.
of the two. So if you look at the whole proposal, the issue gets down to this plan can be reduced, the A plan. If it can be reduced without impacting and still have larger spaces than the B plan, the new plan, what choice should the town have?
Gotcha.
And we can demonstrate other costs on this. Just a further example. The original building is 14,000 square feet.
The one that's currently there.
In round numbers.
Okay.
If we take an equal area of the new building in terms of square footage, use that unit price that the architect gives us, there's a $120 per square foot differential between reuse of the existing building and building a whole new building.
That seems pretty significant.
It is significant. It is. And the question is, as you look at both contraction of space and reuse of the existing building, the dollars say the renovation and addition. Now, the other problem that comes up, however, is one that the other architect, Jack, keeps reminding me, is the water issue and the question of the masonry. I agree with him on the masonry. I don't see it as a killer, though. And
Of course, we're talking about Jack Schleyer, who's also on the
Right.
ad hoc committee.
Right.
And for those who have just joined us, I'm with Dick Haydecker, who is the chairman of the Town Hall Ad Hoc Committee, who's taken some time today to share with us some alternatives or some thoughts relative to the Town Hall renovation rebuild project that's currently before us. So,
Well, if you look at the building very simply, and I won't bring up the other plans, I think we can do it with this one.
Okay.
The big water penetration that's obvious is along the face. This is Sandra's office, this is the collector's office.
So this area here is the current parking lot.
Yep,
And so the proposed bump out, if you will, is to extend out, and this is where the water department is currently, correct? That's their door, and then this is where the Liberty is that goes down, and this is where the garage is now. Is the garage here, or so there's no build out over the garage area?
well, there is a second floor over the garage now.
But there's no extension of, so this is Liberty right
Right.
here, and then this is the bay that they used to use to bring in the prisoners and whatnot. Okay, very good. Just getting everybody at home orientated.
The big issue that's been pointed out, and correctly, is the major fault of water penetration is along this face of the building. There's more minor on the corner here, there's some in here, there's little spots, but not to the extent that you see it here.
Now, it's interesting you say that because those of us who have been at Town Hall know that the peak of the roof goes along this way, and there's a significant guttering issue here and the stairwell that doesn't drain, and so it's not surprising that the water issue is here, but it also seems like it would be the most easily rectified because it is so apparent what the issue is.
Well, this stairwell isn't mentioned as the leak center. It's the stair going into the old police office, which
Really?
is the leak. This is the big problem.
Okay.
And the leak issue is another thing. But the big thing on the masonry is along this face.
Sure.
If water is getting into the masonry, long-term, with frost and thaw cycles, you will have problems with that masonry.
Sure.
So let's leave it and let's have the problems. This is where we seem to be and where we have been for the last 18 years.
Right.
The question is, if you walk up that walk at the present time, turn to the right and left, look up, you'll see the holes in the gutter.
Yep.
You look at the downspout here from the gutter, and you see the stains on the brick running down it. You see the stains here, the stains here. If you look at the masonry across this face, the mortar joints have been eroded. It needs repointing. This is not a tear down, it's a repair and a fix. The question that Jack has raised constantly, though, is as water has gotten in there, whether it's from the gutter, whether it's through the brick, through the joints, it can damage that wall permanently, and it becomes an issue if it's starting here. The other gutters here and around the building could fail in the same way that this gutter has failed and needs some serious consideration as you go through it. The other water problem is really downstairs, the one with the kayak. You have what we call a bathtub up in here. It's a concrete frame, 4 steps going down to go into the
Yep,
police.
the old entrance into the police department, sure.
Bill Casbera mentioned there was 15 to 18 inches of water in here when the kayak was floating. Well, that drain can't handle that amount of water. And the point is, it goes right under the door and it's into the building.
Yep.
At the other end, at the garage is not really the problem. The problem is the exit door next to the garage.
Really? Okay.
Because the garage has a 6-inch curb, which is required by code to keep gasoline from entering the building if there's a spill.
Okay.
You know it at your residence and everywhere else, that you have that step. So the water comes in under this door, the water comes in under this door. There's no notation of problems here. If there were, the boiler room and the electrical and everything else would be in trouble. But the problem is the grades on this site push water into this.
Sure.
And push water onto that apron. The highway department put a new berm on Liberty Place, but this only builds the cavity, and the dam is now
So
higher.
more shuttles the water in
More
there.
water
Sure.
that gets in there stays in there and has nowhere to go. There's beautiful plantings around the front with high mulch berms. Well, when it rains, the water collects between the mulch and the building.
Yep.
Has nowhere to go. It's dammed up. So the problem on the water is the grades outside, as KBA talks about, is close that door downstairs, get rid of it, close the garage, get rid of it, and do some other drainage work on the building. So the water issue is there. I don't recall hearing about it in the first 40 years from the police, whether they handled it themselves or what have you, or the mulch wasn't as high, or the dams weren't as high. But the water as it comes around the building, and this we can demonstrate from site plans, the grade is in this direction, which means water runs perpendicular to the grade. Where's that water going? Right into that bathtub. There's nowhere else to go. The floor level of the building downstairs is 3.5 feet above South Street. Why does water collect here? Why don't we drain it? Why don't we drain it?
That seems like a fairly obvious solution, eh?
Yeah. That's the big key. I think Jack is more than correct on the masonry, as KBA was when they said we need to cut some holes and find out what's in there. So the question is, as was pointed out, it appears. Or we've looked at the building by observation, and this is our study. So the question is, what do we do with that masonry? Is it serious enough to tear the building down? And this is where some of our members have some serious questions, and I do too. But is it worth the $3 million differential?
And we say $3 million differential because with the additional space and the work that's being done, there is an alternate proposal that you're advocating that would cost the town $3 million less for this project.
This.
Okay. So with your project analysis, given that there's all these issues that we agree what the issues are, there's water, there's potential for masonry degradation, there's the obvious need for upgrades for ADA compliance and accessibility. How is your plan different?
It isn't. We have to do exactly the same thing that the new building would do. If we did differently and started to cut corners, that would be a whole different ballgame. But the program doesn't say that. The program says we have to be ADA compliant. It's 2-story. We have to have the elevator, the toilets, and handrails, the doors, and handles, and so on. And as you go through it, the lead removal will take a minimum of 2 weeks. Maximum, if they're sloppy, 5. Asbestos is contained. It is not a hazard. It's encapsulated. So these two things have to be done, whether it's a new building or old. Okay. We can't demolish a building with hazardous materials in it.
You still have to take care of it the same way.
We have to pay to have it removed.
Right.
Then we can tear the building down. So the issue is, as you go through all of the items that are highlighted, they have to be done the same for the new or the alteration. And a key to this would be, if you go through the estimate, the 50-page estimate, and you look at the interior costs, the partitions, the flooring, the walls, the ceilings, and what have you, there's a 19 cents per square foot differential, and this is just from handling, going into an existing building versus going into a new building. Total cost for the entire project is $2,600. That's the differential in the new materials that you're putting into this building. $2,600.
That doesn't seem to be...
This is their estimate, not mine, their estimate. We did not try and doctor up their square foot costs at all. We looked at the fees. They don't meet the state requirements, and we have adjusted them. There's some other minor adjustments, but as you go through the numbers, you and I, or anyone else, and you or I can argue a few dollars here and a few dollars there. But no matter how you cut it, the savings is between 2 and 4 million. And we've averaged it out at 3, because 3 we can justify.
I was going to say 3 is, it seems like a fairly reasonable number, but 3 is also not just a few dollars. That's a significant, that's 40% of the project cost.
Well, the other issue is what the other member that couldn't make it today, our engineer and former chairman of the building committee, has pointed out. There are many other projects on the docket which no one is talking about. We have the 2 schools. We have the rest of the sewer problem, including the piping and what have you. We have the senior center requests. You know, there's a whole pile of things waiting, plus the current bonded indebtedness and the retiree medical liability. We have a lot of costs out there, and no one has listed all of these projected costs over the next 20 years. We have a 5-year window, and everything is pushed beyond that 5-year.
You know, and I think that's a very relevant point, that people all too frequently focus on the project as opposed to the whole town and our needs as a as a liability, because it is going to the piper must be paid, and at some point X, Y, and Z will need to be done. The roof on the Burrell School. There's so many competing projects, and the library is a great example where they held back until the timing was right. And you know, we have the big push-pull. Something obviously needs to be done. Town Hall is not an environment for the long term the way it is now. People are not going to tolerate that much longer. But at the same time, do you just toss money at it?
Well, a very simple statement at this point. I am not opposed to work being done this year. I'm not opposed to an article that would put money to do something. The question is, what is this something? Do we need to appropriate 550 or only 350? For this one, it's 350. For the new one, it's 550. So the issue is, I'm in favor of something being done, and it should be done this week, to be honest with you. The gutter, the water penetration, we own the backhoes and the men. Let's change the grades and get the water away from the building.
We certainly seem to have the resources.
You know, it is a pity that nothing has been done in these years, and Town Hall keeps changing and saying, we need a new building, we need a new building. We don't.
Well, and of course I'm speaking with Dick Haydecker, who is the chairman of the Town Hall Ad Hoc Committee. We are running short on time. We're only going to have 1 minute left, so I'm going to say that part of the impetus of this program here today is that there is going to be a warrant on the upcoming special town meeting that has an allocation for these studies for an architectural review. So it is an issue that is quickly coming upon us, and I want to thank you for taking the time to come out today to give some background and give some, I'll say audio-visual, because quite frankly, I need to hear it and I need to see it. I'm sure it's been very helpful to folks at home. So, Mr. Haydecker, I'm going to give you the opportunity for the last word here. What do you think?
Last word, there was one other option. You've brought it up in the past, rental. We've done very little, if nothing at all, on the rental issue. We have explored it. We've looked at the sites. So has Bill Casbera in the last couple of weeks. But this came up 2 years ago, and we had all of the material. Rental is a viable option. We're going to have to use rental anyway. But how long do we stretch it out? 1 year, 2 years, 40 years? No one has come up with the costs. We can get them. Town Hall hasn't, and we're sort of in limbo.
That's interesting, and of course you're referencing a column or two that I may have written in the past in my role with as a stringer with the Foxborough Reporter. But what you're also referring to is the Boyden Library had to rent space during the library renovation. So it certainly is something that has been done, and as you point out, people are going to have to continue the town's business somewhere, no matter what the solution is. So, and then there's other competing ones where there's now the offer of the current post office on the table. There's many different things, and that's why it's such a confusing topic, which is why I'm grateful that you came in and shared a little bit of your insight and expertise with the viewers today so we could learn a little bit more about it. So, Mr. Haydecker, I want to thank you. If folks at home want to learn more about your committee or want to talk to you personally, they can contact you at 508-543-9412. 9412. And for those of you who may not have gotten all the details here or would like more, I know that there is also a report that your committee has published, and this is available to folks who would like to have more information. Again, call Dick Haydecker at 543-9412 for the Town Hall report that was submitted by the Ad Hoc Committee. And of course, as always, if you'd like to see a replay of this and you miss it on your favorite cable channel, you always feel free to go to our website, www.fcatv.org, and there you can see us in all our glory, and you can maybe do a pause and play, and that way you can see the details a little more detailed. I know that's a redundant word, but you know what I mean. Mr. Haydecker, thank you so much for coming out and sharing with us. On behalf of all the volunteers of Foxborough Cable Access, I'm Bob Hickey, thanking you for taking a little time to be with us. Have a great day, Foxborough.